Okay, the reading for today, April 22nd, is Joshua 22, 21 through 23, verse 16, Luke chapter 20, 27 to 47, Psalm 89, 14 to 37, and Proverbs 13, 17 to 19. Just wanted to focus today on the brother's duty. We see this actually twice in the lineage of Jesus Christ. So the Sadducees, who were Sadducee, they accepted only the written law of Moses, the Torah, alone, and denied the existence of spirits, the resurrection of the dead, and oral obligations, which was the Talmud, which is what the Pharisees specialized in. The Sadducees seemed secular and were politically focused, self-sufficient, denied afterlife, and did not see presence of God in daily activities. And they were aristocrats who wanted a priestly caste but embraced Hellenism, unlike the Pharisees, who did not want to be so absorbed culturally and wanted to be set apart. Pharisees as separatist. So the brother's duty, we can see this in Deuteronomy 25, 5 through 10. And also Genesis 38, 8. So this is the first occurrence of the Kinsman Redeemer. And it actually happens to somebody who really didn't deserve having it coming. And let's see here. Then Judah said to Onan, "Go into your brother's wife and perform your duty as brother-in-law to her and raise up offspring for your brother." So the Sadducees try to trap Jesus with they have their own parable, which is a question of resurrection. If a man marries and dies without children, and then his brother is supposed to marry, and so on and so on. There's 7 brothers. First of all, poor woman. She can't seem to get away from the family. But right here, Deuteronomy tells you that it's the brother's duty to have a child, so the dead husband's name would not be blotted out. And then also, so the wife could be protected and provided for. So the second example we see of this kinsman redeemer is Ruth and Boaz, and he's the grandfather of King David. So the kinsman redeemer for us now, Hebrews 2:11 says we're brethren with Jesus. He's our brother. He's our kinsman redeemer. And it was Yahuwah for Israel. So they actually ask him, it's a false paradigm. They're trying to deny the resurrection. And even the law, as illustrated in Deuteronomy 25, later it's literally fulfilled by Judah with his daughter-in-law Tamar, and Ruth with Boaz. Even though these are literally fulfilled in the history of Jesus, what they really want to know here is they're opposing the resurrection because it's not in the Torah. It's not in the first 5 books. So we can see that whenever there's good doctrine, that there's going to be very well-informed opposition to it. Very well-informed, very legalistic, and very articulate. Fortunately, Jesus is more articulate, much more intelligent. So he turns them on their head by asking them. The 21st said, "Marriage is for people here on earth, but in the age to come, those worthy of being raised from the dead will neither marry nor be given in marriage." So he's outlining his precepts, and then he uses the example of Moses and the burning bush, and actually surprises the Sadducees. And these are 2 other famous Sadducees, Annas and Caiaphas. And this is just an oral tradition. It's not scripture or anything, but it says Caiaphas apparently had a dungeon under his house, and much like Psalm 88 being lowered into the pit, prisoners were lowered in and out of that hole, and that may have been Jesus was definitely in the dungeon underneath the house of the high priest, who at the time was Caiaphas, and he may have been lowered up and down in that same hole. So yeah, the Sadducees, God is the God of the living, not the dead. There is a resurrection. Paul very clearly explains the resurrection. It's been revealed after the resurrection of the dead of Jesus Christ himself. And there's types and shadows in the Torah there's prophecy in the Old Testament, and then ultimately we see that there's this doctrine in the time of Jesus that completely denies resurrection. So Jesus rising from the dead, aside from him silencing them with the Torah, and he purposely uses the burning bush because it's the first book of the books of Moses, which are the only books the Sadducees acknowledge. They're very good to turn their own specialty upon them, because that's really, they're not going to really consider prophets or anything else. So they had a fair shot at understanding the good news and coming to believe. Just like Tamar with Jericho, they had a fair shot at coming to believe. And then Tamar's husbands die. She eventually tricks her father-in-law into giving her a son, and then the second time, Boaz has to go after, or Ruth has to go after Boaz rather. And then our last kinsman redeemer, Jesus is coming after and appealing to all of us. So his resurrection is directly opposed to the doctrine of Sadducees. They say there's no resurrection. The example the Sadducees themselves use actually further illustrate the need for Yeshua, the need for Jesus to be our kinsman redeemer. And Jesus turns them on their own head with what they worship. They worship the Word of God. They're not really into individual prayer, and they're also not. They were into being a part of the culture of the day. Oh yeah, and lastly, God doesn't outright say his plan for redemption and resurrection, because we also read in the Bible that if the devil and the powers of darkness had known what would happen, they would have never crucified the Lord of glory. I don't think they could have ever anticipated the resurrection, snatching of the keys, and the way that God's elegant plan is laid out. God bless.